Welcome back to the Morning Juice. Today my guest is Gary. He's here to show his story of inspiration and recovery, and let's welcome Gary to the show. What's up, bro?
How's it going?
Struggling this morning.
Man.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, then jump into your story.
Well, I'm Gary. I'm from a little small town about an hour and a half here, man. I grew up in the sticks. This last year and a half in Nashville has been a culture shock, to say the least. I'm not used to all this, but yeah, just from a little small town guy, simple guy, but just, man, got caught up in addiction at a pretty early age. I'll just kind of start from the beginning here, I guess. Man, I grew up pretty simple. Not really come from money or wasn't really poor, just a simple kind of, simple life. Yeah, man. Really don't ever, first memories in life, I guess, growing up, I don't ever remember my parents being together. Divorced at a young age. I had a great stepdad. My dad got married to my stepmom. She's awesome. And like I said, just grew up very simple. Stepdad and his brother had a big, huge pig farm I grew up on, man, learning how to drive tractors and all that good stuff. I guess probably the first dramatic experience I remember having in life, I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. And it was the first thing that really, I guess, surprised me in life. I was abused by a family member at 9 years old. Never told anybody about it, didn't tell anybody for 20 plus years. And that kind of lingers with me today because it made me feel like everything was okay if I didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
There was no consequences for it. And it kind of just faded away, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, really other than that, I had a really good childhood, very active in sports. I played 3 sports, excelled in them, and man, didn't have a whole lot to complain about growing up. My mom was probably the most amazing mom I'd ever met. She was always there for me, man. And it's crazy, the very first drink of alcohol I ever had was on video recording.
Really?
At my mom's wedding. Yeah, it was crazy. Going along in my childhood, everything was great until I was about 16 years old, and my mom found out my stepdad was cheating on her. Well, actually, I'm the one that found out and told her. And that kind of flipped my life upside down. My mom really went off the rails with that. Tried to commit suicide a couple times. My little sister was 3 years younger than me, and my focus kind of went to her because I was more worried about her than anything. And that's when I started using.
Yeah.
I started smoking weed all the time, a lot, like a whole lot. And it kind of just made me forget, life was life, and
Took the edge off everything.
Everything, man. But at that point in time, I still didn't feel like I had a problem. I wasn't a big drinker when I was a teenager. Like, I'd go out and parties and stuff like that. But never really drank a lot. About a year after that is when I met the girl that I ended up marrying. Met her at 17. Man, first date with her, we never looked back for 16 years.
Nice.
Ended up having, it was a lot of people, when marriages don't work out, look at the very end. But I like to look at the beginning, the middle, and all of the above, man. We had some really good years together, had 3 beautiful, healthy kids. Probably the next thing that happened is when I started drinking a little bit, is we lost a child. And I never really grieved over that. I felt like I had to be the tough guy, strong guy, there for everybody.
Be there for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still, this day, don't think I've really grieved over that. But that's when I started drinking a little bit. And I guess it was 2008, 2009. I done went to work, man, I had a second kid by then. And I pitched all through, my whole life up until the end, and I messed up my shoulder really bad pitching. And the economy kind of went bad, and I got laid off from my job, and it was, I'd been working
Yeah, it
with
was
that.
during the recession, I believe.
Yes, and also the opioid
Yeah.
pandemic. That's the biggest thing for me. But yeah, I'd never taken any kind of over-the-counter, medication or anything like that, and that was the beginning of my being an addict, or me realizing it, because they was just hand feeding them to me, man. And I had a surgery, and I just couldn't get off of them, man. I could not. That they just grabbed me, and
What was it?
they started out lower tabs. Then when they had the surgery, I was already so used to them. They wasn't working, and they went to Percocets, and
Right.
I was taking so many of them. Then I'd take Xanaxes and drink a beer just to go to sleep every night. It was wild. And it grabbed me really, really quick. But one thing I'm proud of is I won't never forget, I was sitting there holding my oldest son. We were watching TV on the couch, and I was fixing to go spend my light bill money on pills. And I was like, man, I got to do something. I got to do something different here. And I went to treatment when I was 25 first time.
Oh, congratulations.
And was supposed to do a 30-day treatment, stayed a whole 6 days, and my insurance cut out. So they sent me home, and I stayed clean for a year and a half. I didn't drink, I didn't do anything, but I wasn't aware of any kind of recovery community. I know it was there where I'm from, but like I said, it's a small town, and I went to one meeting, and it was.
And back then, treatments didn't even really talk about
No.
recovery community.
They
detoxed you. And
that's what I tell people today. The week I was there, I never once remember hearing them talking about AA, NA, CA, any kind of treatment program outside of there. No IOP, nothing like that. And I went to one meeting, and it was a bunch of guys sitting around telling war stories, and I was just like, man, hell with this ain't for me. And so I white knuckled it, and but that was when I was 25. That was 16 years ago. I haven't been on pain pills or anything like that. Never really done any hard drugs. I never done heroin or fentanyl or anything like that. I did dabble in cocaine a little bit, but I realized I liked it too much and it was too expensive, so I cut that shit out real quick. But yeah, after a couple of years after that, I drank a little bit. On the weekends we'd go out to a club or a bar or whatever. I'd drink. It wasn't really until me and my wife divorced. I was 33, so that's been 7 years ago. I'd never been alone in my life. We got together when I was 17, she was 15. And I never really truly been alone ever in my life. And never been away from my kids more than a night, from the time they were born until that point. And I done okay for a while. I was drinking right toward the end of our marriage, just things weren't going good. We were just staying for the kids basically at that point. And I drank a little more then, but when I got alone, when I got divorced and I was truly, truly alone, depressed, down, missing my kids, fighting in courts, it was
missing your past life.
Man, it was everything I built was gone. That's when I really, really started drinking. And that was what my problem this go around was. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about this. I'm very active in the recovery community up here. I go to meeting a lot. But when 2020, when COVID hit, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this. And maybe it was just the timing of my personal situation, but I was already isolating. I wouldn't pick up the phone. I still, this day, that's one of my biggest problems is, me and you talk a lot. My sponsor but my biggest thing has been reaching out to people, trusting people. But I was already isolating. I can remember going months and not even, the only thing I ever done on my phone was watch videos or something. I didn't use it for communication, period. And when COVID hit, I got laid off from the job I was working. In my head, I was like, man, I'm getting paid to sit at home. I'm getting told to not go anywhere or do anything. I'm basically getting paid to drink. and to do what I'm doing, and it was justifiable then to me,
Yeah.
in my head. And that's when it got really bad, really, really bad. And it stayed that way for hell the next 3.5, 4 years. And I got to the point where I was almost dead. I was living in it's not a trap house, but when I picture a trap house in my head, this is what I picture it looking like.
Right.
Holes, half the size of this couch in the floor, dead in the middle of winter, water, no water, going to the creek to get water to take a bath for my dog, and just freezing to death. Wake up, I couldn't go 4 hours without taking a drink, or I'd go into,
Did you have the real bad shakes?
Oh, horrible. And I didn't realize it, but everybody that, if I was around somebody, they were like, man, you need a drink? What are you talking about? It's shaking like crazy. And I finally, I woke up one morning and I had this crazy dream, I guess. I don't know if I was almost dead. I didn't even realize it. And, I went to the hospital, checked myself in, ended up staying 13 days in the ICU.
Oh, wow.
Blood transfusions. Yeah, it was so bad. They said my body was producing so much acid in my stomach, trying to fight the alcohol off, that it done got in my bloodstream and was poisoning me. And I think that's why I was having hallucinations. I never went into seizures, thank God, but yeah, it was really bad, and I'd had enough then. I'd been to the hospital a couple of times before that. They'd give me the shot, the Vivitrol shot. 2 weeks later, I was drinking. I didn't go to get the help until I was ready to go get the help.
Right.
And
you was just putting Band-Aids on it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I messed up my choice of words when I went to the hospital, because they asked me, was I trying to kill myself? And I told them, I said, no. I said, but I don't know what's going to happen if I leave here. They took it as, I was going to take my life, and I was
or drink it to death.
And they ended up sending me to a mental hospital. I was in there for 9 days. That was a wake-up call. But looking back now, I'm so glad they done that. So glad they done that, because I needed it. I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but I needed the mental side of it, the mental side also.
Absolutely.
Because I was so enclosed in my little capsule, and I didn't trust anybody. Going back to, when I was a kid, when I told you I didn't, tell anybody about what happened to me for 20 plus years. The first person I told was my wife, and she ended up coming back and throwing it in my face. So I was like, I ain't never telling nobody. And anything that I'd ever been through in my life, up to that point, I was just always kept it to myself. It felt easier that way. But yeah, man, I praise them people at that place that I went. They were really, really good to me, and they were having trouble getting me into a treatment center. And I told her, I just did not want to go home, because I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I needed help. And they kept me 9 days. I think about 4 of those days was just because they were trying to find somewhere for me to go.
Yeah.
But they finally found me a place, and everybody told me, oh God, don't go there, it's horrible. And I ended up going, man. And
where'd you go?
I went to Buffalo Valley.
Okay.
In Homewall, Tennessee. Got there, man, I was scared to death. Like, what have I got myself into? Where am I? Why am I here? But I met some amazing people there. At least for me, when I went to treatment, it was about what I made out of it.
Correct.
What I got out of it.
Absolutely.
It wasn't about the structure of the building, how nice of a place, how good the food was.
Yeah.
It wasn't about any of that for me.
Absolutely.
I was dead set on, I'm gonna die. I'm going to die. Man, my counselor there, she saved my life. We got about a week into, the little plan that she had set out for me, and
right.
She threw all of it away, and she said, we're going to focus on surrender the rest of the time you're here. And it's amazing to me, because that's what I struggle with the most.
Yeah,
was
surrender.
And not just, I'm just going to surrender part of my life and this section, or pull this part out, and all my life.
No, yeah, you got to surrender everything.
Everything. That's why I love that third step, take my will in my life, got me in my recovery, that's what I live by today. But I got out of treatment. They gave me an option to go to Dixon, Tennessee, or Nashville, here in Nashville. I'd been talking, doing my research while I was there. Everybody said that Nashville had an amazing recovery community.
Absolutely.
You know, and also job opportunities. I was looking at that too, because I hadn't worked in probably a year and a half, man. I was drinking so much, there was no way I could have done any kind of physical labor. I mean, no way. But I moved up here. I told them I wanted to come to Nashville. They got me in a sober living house. That was probably the scariest I've ever been in my life, when they put me in that van that day and drove me up here and dropped me off.
But do you remember what sober living house, like the people who
It was called Recovery at Wildview.
Okay.
Yes. I got to that house 3 days later. I had a job. My roommate, I tell him all the time, he probably got a world record, because he'd been there just a couple of weeks before me. And the guy, me and him got really close. He's like my best friend, one of my best friends up here. This guy smoked a pound of crack and 90 days later run a marathon.
Wow.
26.2 miles, man. I joke with him all the time. He spoke when I had celebrated my year, and man, he's been an inspiration to me. That's been a big thing for me. Is when I can remember the very first day I got up here is when I went to my first NA meeting. I went that night. And I don't remember who chaired the meeting. I don't remember a single share. I was just in shock, really.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember the last thing they said at the end of that meeting when we circled up was, "Keep coming back. It works if you work it." So I come back the next day, and the next day, and the next day, down to 90 for 90. You know, stayed in that sober living. You know, started working. Ended up getting the job that I have now, which is an amazing job. I've got an amazing job. Just worked hard, put my head down, got promoted recently, man. Got a company truck, phone, credit card, and all that. I told my boss the other day, he knows I'm in recovery, and they give me that credit card. I told him, I said, "Y'all know if I relapse, because y'all be seeing this card swiped in Vegas somewhere or something. You know,
Card's gone,
card
truck sold."
Yeah. No, but I was just joking with him. You know, he laughed. But yeah, I stayed in that sober living for about 9 months, I guess. Ended up, the guy that was my roommate, that's my buddy, he got a house manager job within the same sober living,
Yeah.
but just at a different place. And I went with him because me and him had done got so close, and stayed with him. And then that's when I met Tyler online. You know, me and him got connected through Facebook, and he had started the sober living, and you know, path was, you know,
In its infancy.
yeah, brand new. And he asked me to come be the house manager over there, and I had kind of told myself, you know, I'm gonna stay in sober living for a year, you know, save me some money, and then I'm gonna get my own place. And never even crossed my mind that I would be a house manager anywhere, or you know, but that was God's plan for me, man. Got there. It's been amazing. Being able to connect with these guys, seeing these guys come in at their lowest, where I was, and be able to watch them grow, and being able to be there for them. You know, I don't hear of a lot of house managers that most of the time, in my experience and what I've heard, that most of the house managers really, a lot of them don't even really communicate with the people there. You know,
Right.
they don't hang out with them. They don't go to meetings with them. They're just there to strictly manage that house.
Your best houses though, the house manager does do all
Oh
that.
man, I'm so active with them, like 100%, because I mean, I needed that when I first got out of treatment and was new, and I remember being right where they are, you know, where they are when they come in that, and those guys helped me more than they know, man. They just don't know how much I love them.
Right.
When I see them come in and do good, you know, it warms my heart. You know, we just had a guy, you know, move out on his own. You know, came in, put his head down,
Put
went
his
to
head
work,
down, busted it.
busted it out, man. That's why I texted him the other day, and I was like, "Man, I'm so proud of you, bro. You just don't even know." That's why
That's the kind of stuff that gives me
man,
chills.
it does, man. I'm telling you, That's why we do what we do. That's why I'm sitting here doing this podcast right now. I mean, if one person can hear this and get anything out of it, that's all I need, man.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
And as far as like house managers, man, like, you know, I didn't know you before I started at Path, and then all of a sudden there was some conflict. You wasn't being able to get a hold of the higher ups because they was really trying to get this place up and going.
Yeah.
And so they put me in as like your overseer, as a supervisor, or whatever role you want me to call it or whatever. But man, you have taken off with it. You know, you've used the guidance that's been pushed towards you, you know, and you have really. It's probably one of the best houses in the Nashville area, and I'm not just saying it because I'm over it too. But like, I've been in other sober living houses, and it's one of the cleanest and well organized. So you do a hell of a job. You're really trying to show these guys the right way, you know.
Yeah.
And it shows how much you do love them and how much you love the recovery field, you know, in general. To be able to do that.
Absolutely, man. I was telling somebody the other day, one thing I'm proud of is, you know, it don't matter if you're in a sober living, manage a sober living, whatever. There's going to be some turnover.
It's got to happen.
There's just going to be. But the core guys at the house, they've been there, man, and they stay.
Yeah,
because
like our oldest guy, he's been there since December.
Yeah,
you know, and he's fixing to graduate the program. So like, I mean, yeah.
And they feel like you was talking about being clean. I tell everybody that comes in, I was like, if you don't like me, the number one reason you don't like me is because I'm gonna make you keep his house clean.
Yeah,
you know, I just want. But they figure out.
But you can't live in chaos.
No,
like you have, like that's one of the steps when you're in recovery. They tell you cannot live in chaos. Like, clean your house, clean your car. Like, be proud of what you got. You know,
absolutely.
I still struggle with that from time to time because I don't like cleaning. But like, hey, at least I know it's still one of my flaws.
Absolutely. Well, and they figure out real quickly. And I think the reason they like me a lot is I respect them. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's from different backgrounds. Everybody's drug of choice is different. You know, and you just gotta treat people with respect, man.
See, and the drug of choice is different and stuff. But the one thing that I think people are starting to realize now is that the drug of choice might be different, but it all comes from the mental side. You know, everybody's had some sort of trauma that's led them to self-harming or a drug or, you know, whatever it is that they decide to do, workaholic, alcoholic, whatever it is based on traumas that we didn't get to process when it happened. You know, you went through 3 major traumas and probably didn't process none of it until you actually got in recovery and realized what you had to do.
Well, absolutely. The first time that I shared with more than one person at a time about, you know, my abuse as a child, and I still haven't told very many family members about it, but it's important for me right now to talk about it for me.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? For me. And the first time I really openly shared about it was when I done my 1-year celebration.
Yeah.
And I talked about it. And in that moment, it wasn't for me. It was for the people.
It was for the guys because you know somebody out there's had it.
Absolutely, man. And I can't tell you how freeing that's been for me. You know,
absolutely. That's the key right there. I feel you because I was abused also. You know, and the first time my family found out, unfortunately, was on the podcast.
Really?
Because I was debating on leaving it out because I hadn't told them. But then I was like, I even talked to my producer about it. I was like, but then I came to the notion, I was like, man, if I am not true to myself in this first episode, how can I expect anybody to come on here and just be vulnerable and just let it out? You know, and when you talk about guys being sexually assaulted or, you know, whatever you want to use the word as, you know, it's like there's a big stigma around it. And as guys, you know, we don't want to tell nobody that happened to us because you're hitting us at our weakest point that, like, I mean, that's a point of weakness that, like, that's as weak as you can be as a person, you know, because you're a child or a teenager and you can't like there's no other way to be violated, you
Right.
know, and you know, the world talks about, you know, all the women and all the stuff, and God bless them for what they go through, the cat calling and all that stuff. But like, you know, for me, the first time I ever shared it, I was at treatment because I knew if I didn't get it out, I was not going to recover, because it was the root. It was one of the roots of the problem. I had several roots, and it was one of the big roots, you know? So like, for being vulnerable to tell us that today, like, it's huge, because it's happened to more guys than men want to admit. Because it's scary to admit it, because they don't understand that it affects our intimacy with people. It affects our trust with guys. Like, if you look over my history, I had more friends that were girls in school, probably because that happened, you know, because mentally I was like, I can't, you know, I didn't trust guys as much. And until I got through all that stuff, I didn't realize that's one of the reasons why I didn't trust guys as much, is because of what happened.
Yeah. Most of the, you know, outside of the halfway house and that buddy of mine that I mentioned earlier that was my house manager and my roommate, most of the other people that I'm close with are females.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with any kind of sexual relationship or anything like that. Like, the girl that I probably am closest with, that knows more about me than anybody in Nashville right now, is 21 years old. You know, how the hell did that happen? You know, but we met in meetings and got real close, man. And I think that it has a lot to do with what happened to me. I don't know. I still this day have trust issues with men. Not that I'm scared that it's going to happen now.
Right.
But,
yeah, it's not that it's a fear it's happened now. It's just sometimes it's hard to look in a man in his eyes when I know, you know, it's almost like that inner child's like, look down.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the biggest thing that you know, when I got that out, all the traumas that I went through with my divorce, with my mom, which thankfully, you know, she's a lot better now. I still don't talk to her as much as I should, and I've been working on that too. When I opened up about everything, that's when I got peace.
It didn't control you no more.
Peace, man. I'm
Absolute
talking about
peace.
lay down at night and get a good night's sleep.
Without the voices in the head
And
saying all these other stuff.
Everything, man. And in working an honest program. You know, I can remember when I was in treatment, one of the coolest little exercises we done was we got a piece of paper when we wrote our name on it. We everybody, all the men there, sat in a circle when we passed it around. Even the counselors were in there. And I've still got this piece of paper. I looked at it the other day, and they wrote something about you.
Oh, we did that too.
Everybody does that, and 80% of them, when they wrote on my paper, was that he's a real cool dude and he's very serious about his recovery. And I'm still like that right now, man.
They did that. We had a group, like they would put all of our guys together. They don't do it as much now. They keep the dual house and the mental health house separated to help their treatments. But they did the same thing. So like they would stand you. My therapist, Tanya, I love her. She watches. She's gonna be like, yeah, this is what I did to him. I had a lot of self-hate, negative self-talk. So she was like, I want you to come to the front of the room. Tell me everything you say, everything that's in your head, tell me. So I was like crying, you know, I'm a loser, I'm a big piece of shit. Like, you know, I'm sitting there just letting it out. And she told me to sit down in front of this whiteboard. And she told the people in the crowd, she's like, guys, come up here and write down what you think of Juice. And then I turn around and there's like, this board is full, like natural born leader, looks after everybody, like compassionate, like, and you see all this stuff. And I cried, like, because we're so hard on ourselves, you know, we don't see how other people see us when we're just in that shit.
Right.
You know, and to be able to, like, now, like you said, to sleep peacefully because you let all that stuff out, you know, it's amazing how much you can actually start seeing some of the stuff they said about you. Like, I do that. Like, I am that. You know, sometimes my imposter syndrome kicks in and I'm like, do you really deserve everything you're getting right now? You know, with the podcast, with helping everybody that I help, you know, and it tries to fight. But then I got a picture. Tanya took a picture of that and printed it off for me. And I still, like, if I start getting that imposter syndrome, I pull that picture out. It's 2 years old now, and I'll just sit there and just be like, you are these things. You know, you are what these people think you are, you know?
Absolutely.
Which is different because, you know, when we were younger and we was going through this stuff, you know, it would be like, I am all the things I think I am instead of all the things that other people see you as.
Right. Well, we can only keep what we have by giving it away. Do you know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? That's a big part of it for me, man. I've always, like, going back to when I was 16, you know, I'll never forget when that happened with my mom. All I was worried about was my sister.
Yeah.
That's all. The only person in this world I was worried about was my sister. When we lost the child, me and my wife, only person I was worried about was her. You know, I used to be a volunteer firefighter back home, and I love helping people. I have a lot of traumas from that too. I've seen a lot of bad shit.
I'm sure.
From that, and I don't talk about that enough. I'm working on that in my step work actually right now, getting some of that out. But it does feel good, you know, when the guys in the house, you know, I tell them all the time, you know, their safety is number one for me. I'm there to protect them. That's
Absolutely.
my job. And but at the same time, you know, I got to remember, and they got to remember too, that I'm in recovery just like they are.
And we're going to make mistakes sometimes.
Absolutely. And they're there for me too. If I need to talk, you know, after I got my year, it wasn't but 4 days later, the only girl that I've really dated since I've been in recovery, 4 days after I told my story when I celebrated my year, she passed away, man.
Oh, yeah.
From this disease, and she had almost 2 years clean. And if it wasn't for those guys in that house, man, I wouldn't have used or drank. That's just not in the cards for me.
Yeah, but the mental health side was...
But the mental part of it, bro,
you were struggling.
You know.
Yeah. That's why I was calling you so much, bro, because I was
I was down, and that's... And after my year, I went through the hardest little couple of months, you know, there. I was like, damn, bro. But with, you know, in my recovery, you know, I put God in my life. I put God in my recovery number one over anything else. And if I do that and I continue to do that, everything else will fall in place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely everything.
Because you can't have your recovery without God. So those two, to me, they're like, which one's more important? I'm like, they're the same, because God and recovery is all the same.
Yeah.
Because if I start slipping and not being grateful for the opportunities God presents me, you know, and you know, pray to Him and thank Him for everything He's done, I'm too scared not to at this point, you know, because I'm scared if I don't do it, because I mean, 2 years without self-harming, and then all of a sudden I go down a spiral. Like, I don't even want to imagine what that would even look like, you know. That's what I was telling them last night at the alumni Q&A that I went to. I was like, they was like, what's the driving force you staying in recovery? And I was like, I am too scared to not be in recovery. And me being scared drives me to stay in recovery, because it's like, that thing's outside doing push-ups and he's stronger than ever. And if I was to slip up, you know, I'm not so sure I don't have a relapse left. So like, because I right there at the very end, like it was serious. Like, you know, multiple suicide attempts like within a couple of months. So like, if it was already that bad right before I got help, I couldn't imagine a relapse, because, you know, usually you start off at that point and it's 10 times worse. And that's what I told him last night. I was like, y'all, I stay in recovery because I'm scared to see what it don't look like at this point.
Right. That's what I just recently picked up a sponsee a couple weeks ago. My sponsor, he's been giving me shit for 3 or 4 months now. He's like, man, I can't wait to see who your first sponsee is going to be. He can't, and I was scared to do it because I was so scared to give bad advice. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, I'm you know, but I'm to the point in my step work and in my recovery, you know, he thought I was ready. So I was like, all right, we'll do this. And that's what I was telling that guy the other day. You know, one of the first things we talked about was, you know, do you know who your higher power is? You know, and whatever, you know, his is, that's him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's got.
Do you have one?
You got to be there, bro. Those steps are in order for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And me personally, I can't stay clean and be in recovery and not work those steps.
I agree.
And not have a sponsor. I mean, there's people out there that white knuckle it, that been clean for years, that don't have a sponsor. I can't do that.
Right.
I cannot do that. And he kind of struggles, you know, picking the phone and calling. And I was like, man, me too. Me too.
Absolutely.
I said, but what I done, and take it for whatever you want. I said, every meeting you go to, ask one person for their number. Just ask one.
Get that community built.
And start out just calling that person once a week or twice a week, and then get another number and then call them. And I said, I'm telling you, before long, if you work an honest program and these people see you growing and doing what you're supposed to do, I said that one person is going to turn into 5, and that 5 is going to turn into 10, and 10 to 20, and so on. And I said, next thing you know, you're going to have a network, and man, I can remember right the day before I left my wife, the last thing my mom-in-law said to me was, and I was drinking pretty good by then because I was miserable.
Yeah.
And the last thing she said to me, she came up to my shop and she said, I've been in nursing my whole life, and she said, you're gonna die drunk and alone. And she said, that's a miserable way to go. And man, I can remember thinking about that when I decided I had enough. I remember being in the hospital, hearing her say those words. And that's what I told, and I tell people this all the time, man, that talk to me about it and that have been alone and isolated. I was like, you know what? You're not alone no more, bro.
Absolutely.
You got people, a room full of people wherever you go that love you for you. It don't matter what you've done, how much you stole, how much you drank, how much drugs you've done, whatever you've done.
We're not even
gonna
pass judgment, bro. We're not day one in here with us.
And you're gonna have to come back and face those demons a little bit if you want to grow and recover.
Yep.
But that don't matter. All we want to know is how we can help. That's it.
And what you're doing today.
And I know right now the biggest piece that I have in my life right now, you know, I'm not in a relationship or anything like that. That is one thing that I think about a lot. I miss that, you know. I miss having somebody to share life with, but I'm not alone.
That's exactly what I said the other day. Like I'm to the point in my recovery where like I feel like God's leading me, and He's gonna eventually put that right person in my life now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But like right now, I am so invested into just helping one person at a time that like I think even He knows that it's not my right time yet. Like, because He's really using me as a vessel right now, and I am like 100% on board, you know, and while the fire's hot, and like especially June being Men's Mental Health Month, you know, and you know, just getting this started and getting past started, and it's just like, you know, God knows when the timing's right for both of us. But like you said, I'm not alone no more. Like before I got into recovery, I probably couldn't have named 6-8 people to carry my casket.
Absolutely. And
now I probably got 50 brothers that would want to be there for that.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's such a good feeling now. You know, when I first got up here, I didn't know anybody in Nashville. Nobody in Nashville had ever seen me drink, do any drugs, never seen me using. I ended up bumping into a couple people that were from the same town that I'm from that live up here in recovery now that I just didn't know. But now there's not a single meeting that I go to that I don't know 4 or 5 people there.
Yeah,
they come up and hug me. And
does it not feel good? That's what I was going to say.
Man,
does it not feel
amazing.
good? You walk in and they yell your name and they're like giving hugs and stuff.
And the other night, I was chairing at my home group, and I was getting everything cleaned up, and I took a couple of guys from the house, one for the first time, and he was talking to another person at that meeting, and they were standing close enough where I could hear them, but I wasn't in their conversation. And that one dude, he was like, man, Gary's awesome, man. He's a rock star.
That's what I tell everybody.
And I didn't say anything. I just walked by, But if that don't feel good, I don't know what does.
It's
You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like we had our cookout, last Saturday,
Yeah.
Saturday before last, whatever it was, and everybody started sharing, and I was just like, God, this is, and T-Bell, he got emotional because it was like, this has been what he's been dreaming of for the past year, that community that we had. And then I got upset when I was talking about you because I was like, y'all don't understand how much this guy means to myself, because he's my eyes when I'm not with y'all, but he's literally doing God's work by trying to help y'all. And that's why I got emotional for you, because I was like, he needs to hear this today in front of all these guys, because like, you didn't come into the natural transition of house manager, because usually you in the house and you're watching the other house manager, and then that house manager moves on and you're the next one on the block, but you already kind of know how everything is. And like, some of your first guys, you never dealt with mental health people before in a house, and we had that one that he was schizoaffective, and it's like, you had to call me all the time because you just didn't know what to do. And once I started helping you with the process, even he came around with you, and it just shows the willingness and the growth that you have, and the care that you have for the guys. And, just know that you are super appreciated for everything you do.
I appreciate that. It meant a lot the other day when y'all said that.
Yeah, it was.
I wasn't expecting it.
Once T-Bell started, I was like, nah, I gotta do it too, man, because like, he needs to know, because like, for people that don't know, me and Gary talk. If we don't talk every day, it's every other day. Like, we check in, like, dude is my brother, like my brother from another mother. Like, we goof off, we do everything. It's nothing for us just to text each other and say that we love each other, because we're both on this journey together, and he's at a year and I just hit 2 years, so like, we're still young in this journey, so.
Well, I'm almost 18 months.
You are
almost 18 months. Yeah.
So, but like, it's just crazy that God puts these certain people in your life when you're in this recovery, and it's just like you mesh, and it's just amazing that like, all these different personalities come in your life, and it's somehow you just mesh, and that's what I love about recovery.
That's what it's all about, man. That's guys in the house, especially one all the time. He from New York, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He gives me shit all the time. It's how country I talk and all that. I'm like, bro, But what 5 years ago, if you'd have told me that some of my best friends used to be a crackhead from Nashville, and dude from Memphis, and a couple guys from New York, and you and Tyler, man.
And this guy used to run from here, and this guy was over here.
You're out of your mind, man. But that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Now, as we come to the end of the show, look at that camera right there. Mm-hmm. And I want you to say what you think is the most important thing for somebody beginning their recovery, or somebody wanting to start. What would you tell somebody that's if somebody came to you and was like, Gary, I need help. I really want this recovery. I love what you do. What's the first thing you would tell them in order to get that recovery?
Well, number one, man, you gotta surrender. You gotta give your life to something higher than you. First and foremost, that was for me. Number two is communicate, man. You got to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Do not keep it in. Secrets will drown you quicker in this program and in recovery than anything else out there. And man, just keep coming back. Find you a home group, find you a sponsor. There's so many meetings and so many different ways to find recovery in this community. And this, man, I've been to meetings in Chattanooga. I've been to meetings in Ohio. I've went back home. Nashville has the most powerful recovery community that I've ever seen.
Amen.
Absolutely, for 100%.
Amen.
And it does not matter if you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, gambling, sex addict, self-harm, whatever it is, there's a place here for you. Man, just take your life back, man. You're worth it.
I appreciate that, Gary. we're at the end of our show. As always, if anybody's out there and they're struggling, please reach out to us. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Morning Juice Pod. You know, just like, subscribe, comment, share. We're trying to get this video out everywhere. We need y'all's help. You know, if anybody has my number and they're struggling, holler at me. You know, we will get you where you need to get to. With that being said, we'll see you next time on the Morning Juice. Bye.
Peace.